Hey, Christine Faulkner with Cava and Faulkner, Elk Grove Living Trust lawyer, Sacramento will attorney. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Catching Up with Christine. I'm Christine Faulkner, an estate planning attorney with Cava and Faulkner. And today we're going to talk about why it's so important for your 18 somethings, young adult children to have their incapacity planning in place. So this video is for you. If you have a child who's graduating from high school, going to turn 18 sometime this year, go off to college, move out of the house, kind of embark on that new world of adulting. It's so important for family members and for young people to have their incapacity planning. So if something happens to them, they have people that they've named who can step in for them legally and medically to take care of them. So let's get started and let's talk about what that could look like for both your child and for you. Imagine you have a child who's graduating from high school. You're enmeshed in all of the getting ready to graduate from high school, getting your kid ready to go to choose a college, and then the day comes when you actually drop them off and leave them and have to come home, and they get to experience that independence for the first time. It is a scary and wonderful thing all at the same time. But also imagine what that would feel like for you and for your child if something happened and your child ended up in the emergency room and you were not able to be there with them. You have there's usually two outcomes. If your child hasn't executed any incapacity planning, it may very well be that you are cut off from helping them. And that can be a huge frustration for both them and you. Or you could do the easy way, which is your child has executed a HIPAA release, an advanced healthcare directive, and so it's easy and smooth. HIPAA is a right that allows patient privacy, meaning if you're an adult, the doctor, the medical provider cannot release medical information about you to other people unless you've given them authorization. So that HIPAA authorization would be your child authorizing you to get medical information, and that HIPAA release would allow you to participate in discussions with the doctor, with the medical staff, and your child to help decision make about whatever's happening. I imagine that would feel wonderful for both of you, especially for your child who's probably used to having you around to help them make these kinds of decisions. Probably would be a very nice thing for you as well, rather than being completely cut off from understanding what's going on. That can be nerve-wracking at least, and extremely scary in a worst case scenario, in a bad situation. So executing that HIPAA release can also be very helpful to allow you to actually pay the bill, because we all know that even though our kids are 18 and they've gone off to college, we're still probably going to be responsible for them through our health insurance for their medical bills. And without that HIPAA release, it can be super difficult to get information from the billing department to even get the bill paid. So wouldn't you like it if you could just make it smooth and easy, fax over this HIPAA release and get the information you need so that you could get the bill paid? And of course, on a more serious note, of course, you'd want to be able to, or wouldn't it be great if you could actually participate in healthcare decision-making with your kid, because you have your child has executed the HIPAA release ahead of time. If something more serious were to happen and your child were actually to be incapacitated, how would you feel to be able to smoothly and quickly jump into action to be able to make necessary decisions for your children, especially if it were life-threatening, as opposed to not having that ability because they had not completed the advanced healthcare directive? You actually could end up in court trying to get a conservatorship over your child, which is basically a guardianship proceeding over an adult person. Sounds crazy and unlikely, and we all keep our fingers crossed that will never be us, that will never happen to our children, but it certainly has. And certainly in over the past year, we've all seen that anything can happen to anyone, no matter what age they are, healthy, old, young, and can escalate very rapidly from a medical perspective. And so if it were your child in the hospital with a very serious medical condition, I imagine that you would really want the ability to be able to help them, to jump into action and to make sound medical decisions rather than end up in court, which is expensive and could be quite time consuming. The other piece is having a power of attorney. So imagine that your child ends up in the hospital with a very serious medical condition, like a head injury. They can't communicate on their own. And there's actually a lawsuit that should be brought against the other person or an entity or a company. But they're not able to do it because they are in a coma, or they are having some very serious brain function issues that doesn't allow them to act on their own behalf. If you had that power of attorney naming you as an agent, you'd be able to jump into action pretty quickly, as opposed to potentially not even being able to bring that lawsuit because you're in a conservatorship proceeding, and maybe you're running up against a statute of limitations, the time frame that runs out to actually bring a lawsuit against a person who has liability. So would you rather be the parent who's able to help their child, or would you rather be the parent who feels like they have no control, their hands are tied, and so basically upsetting to not be able to reach out and really help their kids when they need you the most, when they're hurting, when they're in a new situation that they've never experienced before. So most kids and most parents, most young people, they're focused on the life ahead and all of the exciting new things that are happening in their life, and rightfully so. But wouldn't it be great to have all of those loose ends tied up, all of your ducks in a row, or your children's ducks in a row, so that if you needed to help them, you would be really equipped to do that from a legal perspective without any red tape. So I love talking to people who have parents, or folks who have young people in their life that are going to be graduating, that are turning 18, so much on their minds about new experiences for these young people and what it will be like, especially if you have a child going away to college, being an empty nester or partial empty nester. But this goes part and parcel with having a child become an adult. Now stepping into that role of an adult and making those legal and financial decisions that are so important to make sure that they're protected, and you are as well, enabling you to really help them. So I hope you found this interesting, maybe eye-opening a little bit, something that you haven't thought of. So definitely share this with your 18-year-olds, 20-something kids who have never ever thought of this before. And think about it for yourself, and maybe broach the subject and see how that lands with your family, whether it makes sense to do this. And if it does, this is absolutely something that we can put in place really quickly, definitely before your children go away to school. We can get this done quickly and easily. So that's one thing that you can check off your list and feel really good and feel really secure that if there were ever an emergency, you could absolutely step in to help. One of the things about legal planning is it's sometimes not the easiest thing to think about doing, but once you become an adult and you start having more responsibility to yourself and others, it is really about kind of stepping into that responsibility and thinking about the impact that you have on other people's lives. And that's really what incapacity planning is about. It's about making sure that if something happens to you, that it's so much easier for other people to both step in and help you, but also it's easier for them. It's allows them to stay out of court, which is a huge gift. I will tell you, as a past litigator, it is a huge gift to help your family or the people who love you the most, who would be most likely to step in for you, to stay out of court, to not have to spend all that money and time in court, but to be able to jump into action because they have the right legal documents in place already. So time is money, as they say, and time is important to all of us. And wouldn't it be great if your child kind of saw the value in this, was interested and really wanted to execute this to help themselves, but definitely to make things easy for you as well, so that you could step in and help them. That's what it's all about. helping the people that you love. So thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Catching Up with Christine. Like our videos, subscribe to our channel. Let me know what you'd like to hear about, what you'd like to hear more of, and I'll be happy to create videos around that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.